Hello and welcome back to our continuing adventures, this time on It Came From Reddit. Since it seems to be where I'm finding some of this stuff, or I guess technically I should say I'm being directed to it to take a look. So, this was on r/tech support. Um, the Redditor reported going and taking a look at this particular GitHub, pulling down a TikTok follow bot. That actually here I've got it up here from. Oh wait, no, different window than what I've got here. So let's see. No, from BallsDev99. Notice the code's only been in 2023. So what is it, like late January, early February? So they grabbed the TikTok follow bot. So large quantity of, two DLLs, a batch file to run, a couple of the obligatory readme.md, some other aspects here. So this is what they went through, grabbed, and ran. You run the batch file, and supposedly you'll get prompted to a section where you can put in your channel or your video, whatever the case is, and end up getting a million or over 1 million bots to sit there and I guess give likes, or I don't know. I don't do TikTok. Don't care. Chinese spyware. So this person went through, did it, and started having a bunch of weird windows pop up after the fact. It was actually Brad that found it and brought it to my attention, and apparently he'd made the recommendation to go through, change passwords on a known good clean system, and then nuke and pave the box, which, hey, more power to him. That'd probably be the way I'd go through and handle it as well. And not a system restore or anything else like that. Just, okay, known good system, Windows 10 or 11 media creation tool, and just nuke the whole system. Hopefully you got data backups. If not, then maybe grab a Linux Live CD and go through and pull the stuff off the system without Windows actually running, assuming you can. So bot artificially grows TikTok page, blah blah blah, does not infringe on terms of service, not responsible. Yeah, and they give a demonstration video. So I mean, they put together a decent amount of effort in the demonstration to get you hooked. I don't know how they're going about and doing the advertising for this particular aspect, but this was interesting enough that I just had to take a look. So there is both of them zip files, both of them lead to running a batch file to go through and operate said code. And so, is it really a bus if it's a RV? Excuse me while I prove that I'm human, supposedly. So go through, and this is improving little bit by little bit. I believe that this was February 15th, the first time this was put in, and right now at the time of recording, it is 17th. And so what we've got is a good number of things actually picking up and denoting on this. And the key aspects are Google is picking up on this, which I'll demonstrate in a second. Then the WalletManager, the other aspect. Again, batch file, there's a GitHub folder. Only one DLL this time. Although the interesting thing is, inside the .NET YAML, talks about building STEALERIUM. So of course I had to sit there and take, okay, so what? But the other aspect, before we pivot all the way into that. Apparently I must prove that I am human yet again. again, that's on them. I'm an android from the future. Uh, and this is getting better as well, but another one is Google, which is nice to see, as when nothing flagged when I pulled these down originally, going through and retrying to download them now on the 17th, both of them denote that, okay, so Chrome is blocked and that both of them are dangerous. Now you notice the WalletManager -main.zip failed network error. It's because the AV on this recording system had a bone to pick with it, so it got to it before Chrome could. So we are seeing blocking. And then when running it on a Windows or the Windows 10 VM with, or sandbox, I guess I should say, after adding or turning off smart screen, everything else like that. Actually, no, because I was using, what is it, Microsoft Edge. That didn't have any problem with pulling it down. Defender did after the zip files were created. And I went through and did an extraction in the downloads directory. So when we cut over to the sandbox, I have moved the stuff into a excluded folder for Defender. So this stuff is kicking off. So this would be probably a fairly good obligatory point of when this was first going on. You get 2 or 3 engines that would detect. At a particular point, okay, you're going to sit there and kind of try to do risk analysis. Okay, it's not widespread detected, so it very well could be a false positive. And, maybe you just really, really want to go through and, have a central managed alternative currency wallet. Or you just really, really want to be or try to be the next big thing on TikTok. We come back to the extremely old adage of if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And at no particular point, I mean, this thing's going to do some botting all right. Foreshadowing. So I had mentioned STEALERIUM, or however you want to pronounce it. Let me take that down. Let me bring that up. That's inside the Windows 10 box. And so it's github.com//STEALERIUM. So the thing it was going through and trying to build, Stealer plus Clipper plus Keylogger. So if it's in one, it's probably in the other. I haven't confirmed for the TikTok app or code, but why would you want your alternative electronic currency, your digital currency wallet, your central location to have something like this in it? And I mean, this is not any sort of extra widespread, in-depth investigative knowledge. This is just looking at the contents of the files as they're presented. Something not right here. Oh, yeah, contents of that .NET YAML. So let's take a quick look at this stuff here. Get that out of the way. So upper portion, we've got the extract of the 2 zip files into their separate portions, and then everything dumped out below. And they go through and match. Batch file as directed to go through and kick these things off. For this particular exercise to demonstrate, the Windows firewall is turned off, just for simplicity's sake. And of course, smart screen is off. So what we're going to do is we are just going to go ahead and run both batch files. Now, mind you, at these particular points, we should see, some option to, especially with the one going for the TikTok, a aspect of, hey, you need to press 1 and put in your live stream or whatever the case is, that it was sitting there telling us that, yes, this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then what we've got is renamed PowerShell.exe dumped into the particular folders. It looks like it's trying to hide one. Oh, there's the other one. So there is stuff going on behind the scenes. So we'll come back to that. So we come back to this particular aspect. So, okay, we see that we've got detections now, roughly 2+ days later. And it seems like it's only getting better. Well, if we take those batch files and dump into here, it's obfuscated. Plenty of other stuff basically just denoting crap. So that's the TikTok follow, and that is the WalletManager. Interestingly enough, the WalletManager picks up more. Did the obligatory searching through for runs of any.run. And since it seems like that tops off at 4 to 5 minutes for the free accounts, not much came out. It is what it is. All right. And so we've got the typical any.run for the wallet manager. It at least looks like it shows out the same particular aspect. We get the PowerShell renamed, dropped, and then nothing else. So it's got to be a timing thing. And so hybrid analysis is picking up that the wallet manager is malicious from the multi-scan from VirusTotal. Not a giant shock from that. Again, so it's flagging on the DLL and flagging out on the BAT file. And no, not the Batman file. Oh, looks like somebody tried off this particular one yesterday without much. Oh, I filed during. Let's take a closer look at closer look at that. Memory dumping, tried to avoid by sleeping incessantly or multiple times. Tries to sleep for a long time, 2 minutes. One 156680406.9 milliseconds. Sure, which for us mere mortals. What exactly does that break down to? I don't know what the conversion is. Is it just derivatives of 60? Yes, it looks like okay using reverse engineering. So I mean, plenty of things seem to hit with that. There you go. Hours, seconds, minutes. Yeah, I see that one. The convert afterwards. Oh, hooray. And because everything is behind uBlock origin, turn that off. Okay, so that wants. Wow. 2 weeks, 4 days, 3 hours, 13 minutes, and 24 seconds. Wow. Oh. So I guess I really shouldn't be overly shocked then. And that maybe explains too why when we take a look at let me bring that up, the local sandbox, we don't have anything because it's not been running for 2 weeks. Four days, 3 hours, 13 minutes, 24 seconds. I mean, that is one hell of a long wait time. Which, and if we take a look at that, so join last month, so that would make it January. Okay, so basically just take, say, January 27th. And so that would have been Friday, the last Friday in January, which would have put 2 weeks at February 10th. 4 additional days, 11th, 12th, so it would have been the 14th. And if memory serves me right, I think the initial post that started this whole thing was the 15th, which would have fallen after. So they would have had to have been right on this then for that 2 weeks, 4 days, so on and so forth, to have that actually on the system for everything to kick off. But that is a rather ingenious way to make sure that, any sort of analysis is effectively going to be stymied. And I don't know as to whether or not if that is looking for specific time. So could you trick it by going through and is it just using system time? So if I were to take the system offline and change the BIOS time to like say 3 weeks in advance and then boot the system back up without an internet connection so it can't do NTP, would we then see some sort of activity? That might be something to take a look at because the local sandbox is not reviewing anything, but it also, the local one does not have an option or the ability to sit there, splice, you know, what was it? Let's see here. It can't splice. Say we'll just round up 1.6 billion milliseconds to something more manageable in that case. So that entirely makes sense as to why everything has been. You get results in certain, and then other ones you don't get anything, which also explains why. So any.run doesn't come back with anything. Not much. 4 or 5 minutes versus, roughly 3 weeks. Okay, so that's something I did not catch on the first couple of look-throughs. So let's just kind of move that down here. Okay, so all that effectively to build up to the big aspects. At least I don't think I've covered it. So both of these are both projects in the triage sandbox provided by Recorded Future must go through and chop that 1.6 rounded up billion milliseconds to something a lot more manageable for the time frame as specified. They give you up to 30-minute run windows, which I did for both, and so we get the high score detections on the batch files for Quasar Rat, Spyware Trojan, which, okay, makes kind of sense, more so with the wallet code, given the fact that that's that STEALERIUM um, aspect. And move that one over here. And so there's the badge file, same exact portion, Quasar, which I believe is a open source rat that's been kind of talked about off and on for like the past 5 years, maybe more, longer. Both projects, quote unquote projects, both utilize the same apparent domain for communications with the dropped, renamed PowerShell in the Windows directory. lively-voice-43447.pktriot.net. And we'll go back to the other one, drop all the way down. And then the same Australian IP. Threat intel wise, centered around this. The domain, according to Talos, is neutral. OTX doesn't have much of anything. Now, the fun part is pivot to the address that is seen in the triage. Because usually if you're going to take a look at this, you're going to approach it from both sides. The domain that's being used and then the IP address in question. So not really much of anything for Talos, at least as it sits. It looks like it at one time was on a block list that has since expired. I think that's 1 or 2 weeks, typically. Then you get OTX, and wow, a lot of rat activity. I mean, 140 related tags, Emotet, WannaCry, TrickBot, QBot. So apparently it's also not just Quasar, but NJRat. Cobalt Strike, which that was confirmed by taking the IP address in question, dumping it into Twitter, doing a search, and I think it was 2021, maybe 2022. There were postings in regards to underneath the hashtag C2 and hashtag Cobalt Strike calling this out. So yeah, this is dirty. This is bad. Not that, from the individual testings that we haven't sat there and kind of come to that determination already. So because of the fact that nothing's happening on the local box, I'm going to go through and make the adjustments to the system time, pull the internet connection, so that way there can't be any NTP or anything else like that requests, or no external service lookups to sit there and take a look, and we'll see as to whether or not if this thing sits there and tries to make comms out after I advance it 3 weeks. So I might just 3 weeks would put it technically in March. So I might just say April 1st. I mean, that's what, April Fool's Day, right? So go through and try that. See if we get any sort of actual local results, because like I said, nothing else is coming through. So close that. Okay. Yeah, so it's already on the system, so let me go through and do that, and we'll pick that back up. Okay. Jumped ahead magically into my time machine to April 1st. Waiting to see as to whether or not if anything happens. System is slow due to TCP view, auto runs, and process explorer trying to possibly find and then check everything as it jumps up. I mean, because that processor is pegged. So, fingers crossed, keep waiting. And give this a chance to kind of even out or see if anything shakes out the way that it was. Or that Australian IP or anything else like that comes back. Okay, so going through and trying to adjust the time of date did not lead to anything, so probably have to make a addendum. But I've got a snapshot created that I'll power on in the infected state, just so the time and date can stay updated, and go through and do a couple of other checks. In the meantime, I will probably also go through and mount or boot the system in some of the Linux-based rescue CDs. Kaspersky I know has one. I'm sure there's other ones. And just try to go through and scan the system to see as to whether or not if it does pick up anything periodically. So I'll probably just have to go through and append notes in the description or comments for that particular aspect. So where does that effectively lead us? We've got reasonably new dev, or I guess I should say coder, that's got the profile on GitHub that has 2 supposed projects that claim to be one thing, but in reality are quasi-rats. AV engines are doing a fairly decent job on detecting these particular aspects, and so more than likely I will be going through and issuing reports on these particular aspects. Don't know how quickly GitHub will take any sort of action on it, but just try to get ahead of the stuff. And I'm sure that, like with every bad actor, you knock one down and they're just going to stand up somewhere else. I mean, because it's an anime avatar. I'm sure they'll pick something else. Maybe instead of red, they'll change everything over to a blue hue and rotate the face so it's facing the right as opposed to the left. Don't know. Um, but effectively, at least now everything is effectively being detected. Well, mostly. But this is the whole aspect in terms of, I mean, this is full manifest of if it's too good to be true, then it more than likely is. So there's no apparent functionality for what these things claim to be. It just seems like a additional way to social engineer you to get their grab code that you probably more than likely wouldn't understand by looking at it because those batch files are obfuscated, and you're just going to sit there and take the chance that everything's going to be entirely fine with it. But they do sit there and seem to follow the same sort of process. I mean, they're all talking to the same domain, same IP address. Code is different, although both of them seem to wait the extended periods. And they drop the PowerShell. Apparently there's other stuff that gets dropped in there too. It's more so just the aspect of just what was being dropped in the Windows directory. So that's realistically what I really would love to see, and that's probably a fairly good indication that everything is fully taken hold by the time that this is in place. As this was what was being called out and started this whole conversation on Reddit. So I'm going to sit there and have this released for Saturday, and then effectively we just have to kind of sit back and twiddle our thumbs until April 1st comes around, and we'll see as to whether or not if the infection will magically take hold. And see as to what else shakes out as to whether or not if I have this, or if the VM sits there and starts communicating back out to Australia, as opposed to all this other individual testing. It's kind of sad that this is effectively where we've come to, but like with anything, you get code that you don't understand, you probably should not be running it in a box, or on your own box. And even then, well, I guess that's why we have community editions of all these different sandboxing solutions online. Any.run, triage, hybrid analysis to go through. And I'm sure there's probably more too, but so there we go. I guess the other thing might be too, you want to go through and do your own testing. Just obviously be careful with either of these things. If you figure out how to shorten or how it's going through and shortening the 1.6 billion milliseconds to something a lot more manageable. I'd love to have some sort of idea as to how I could see about trying to go through and incorporate that. I don't know as to whether or not if it would just be something as simple as, building a VM, Windows 10 VM, and instead of UEFI, make it BIOS so that way everything can be changed. Of course, the whole problem is, actually, I guess the other aspect could be I could back out the changes, take this back to like say Jan 1, run it, and then bring the system to current. Because then the system would expect that, oh, hey, okay, it's been 3 weeks. Actually, I'm going to go through and do that. Let's see as to whether or not we get any results. So I'll pause, go do the needful, and we'll see what shakes out. Okay, so unfortunately that was a wasted couple of hours of processing time. That did not do anything. So I don't know as to whether or not if maybe when it's run, it's checking out bound to get an established time and date to know as to, how long it's got to wait for when it should actually hit the 1.6 billion milliseconds, as was denoted. But not much we can do in regards to that. Um, so I suppose effectively look for an addendum to this particular video after April 1st, I guess, as that's when the infection kicked off. Although hopefully the countdown, that doesn't have to actually be 1.6 billion milliseconds of actual honest to God time. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to leave the VM running for roughly 3 weeks. That's something I really want to do, but it would be interesting to actually have this thing go through and kick off and then see as to how to remove the damage, if at all possible. But effectively, as it sits, there's not going to be a whole heck of a lot else we can do in regards to this. So, the typical aspect of, well, okay, what was typical? The common sense doesn't seem to be as common anymore. If it's too good to be true, it more than likely is. And if you recognize the names of any of this software and you've run it, and it hasn't been 2 weeks, 4 days, 15 hours, whatever the actual count was, you might want to sit there, pull the internet connection on anything you ran this thing on, back up your data, nuke and pave the system, and basically be very careful with what you do in the future. I mean, thankfully, it looks like VirusTotal is getting more and more results as time goes on, which is good. Hopefully that will mean it will filter down to all the other various AV platforms, and we'll have better protection against this stuff up until the point where this person goes through and decides to change the code yet again, and it's just starts all over. I'm fairly certain we can't ask for any sort of campaigns, but if you come across this stuff, and seeing as how I've just found there is a block or report, I myself, and let me be very clear, I am not asking for a dogpile campaign, but given the fact that this is not anything that it claims to be, along with the added results of, okay, I've gone through, I've done the sandboxing, I've run the stuff through VT, I've done my own tests, and we get more than enough indications that this is indeed Quasar-Rat that's dumped into this stuff. Much less the WalletManager having the aspect for that STEALERIUM. I want GitHub to go through and review it. I mean, this is blatant disregard. It is not what it claims to be, and it is indeed malware. Effectively information stealers, along with the rat aspect of it. So you're effectively giving access to somebody else, an unauthorized third party. So, take your pick. You go through and do your own testing, and maybe you come up with something different than what I have, but this just looks bad, smells bad. So, but more quickly finding out that, we can't take these things and run them through VirusTotal and get, 50 plus AV engines all agreeing that it's malware. It takes time. And it's only going to probably get worse. And with having to sit there and wait 2 weeks, might as well just say 3 weeks, we'll round it up. I mean, who's going to sit there and spend the time to have a VM stood up for software that you want to test? I mean, even in the corporate setting, when we did proof of concepts, you generally go for maybe 2 or 3 days at most. Running the proof of concept inside of a secure containerized environment, monitoring the traffic going back and forth. Even that wouldn't be enough in this particular case. I mean, at some particular point, you do need to have trust in the vendors that you select or the developers. I mean, I really would love to know how they're going through and advertising this stuff to direct people to it. So I guess effectively, if you stumble upon this and you were directed to this, please share in the video comments as to how you got approached and how you were directed to sit there and find this stuff out. I guess that would be the one thing I would make a recommendation for homework, because I would honestly love to know. Was it just some random person on Reddit hitting you up saying, hey, I got this stuff that you may want to take a look at? Are they actively sitting there and pointing this stuff out to people that have TikTok, is it channels? Whatever. People that are using it? I just have no idea. But, so I guess technically, if you know, please share with the class. But, and you can obviously see, I mean, this wasn't a quick dump into VT and we know for certain that everything's good to go. This was having to sit there and spread it across VT, any.run, hybrid analysis, triage. I'm sure at a particular point I could sit there and probably take the batch files and dump them into integer and get some sort of result from that particular aspect and see what the end results of that come back as. Actually, you know what? I think I still have 50 free submissions a month. I'm gonna pause this, get this fired up, and we'll submit that to there and see what shakes out. Because I'd like to see as to what they're doing in regards to this. Okay, well, that turned out fairly well. Neither hash was inside integer, so I went through and kicked it off and submitted the batch files. Tried to do the zips, but apparently the zips have to be or contain only a singular file, so I figured, okay, let's just start with the batch file and we'll go from there. And it does come back with the indication that it is malicious. So at least there's that. And then the other one plays out mostly the same. Unknown unique code, but still manages to mark it as malicious. So I think I'll go through and do the static extractions, and I will go through for the extended dynamic analysis. And then, as always, I will add this to the list of links that will be accompanied in the description for this video, so you could run through. I suppose I probably could just saved a whole bunch of time to be like, okay, taking the batch file as directed by the instructions, dumping it into integer. Oh, okay, it says it's malicious, so let's move on. I kind of wish I had a test machine in a restricted, like, say, Cybereason, Sentinel-1, and CrowdStrike environment, since those are technically like the three. Well, I'd also kind of be interested to see as to what Cylance would handle, since it's heavy on the machine learning aspect, to see as to what this stuff would pump out in terms of being malicious or not. Although I guess technically, is it in? Unable to process the file. Oh well. But there we go. It's still gonna unable to statically extract the file. Okay then. I guess that was a bust. Probably a waste of one of the limited credits that you get on the free account. So, okay. I'll go through before, or have it go through into the extended dynamic. You guys won't have to wait for that. So there we go. Ended up taking longer when I paused. Apparently the AV that I've got is one of the ones that's actually detecting on the batch file being malicious. So every time I'd go to extract it from the zip file, it'd be like, no, no, no. But so there we go. There's everything with that. Stay away from anything produced by this Balls Dev 99, as it is more than what it appears. And like I was talking about like a few minutes ago in the video, if you were directed to this person's stuff, I would love to know like, the situation around it. So, and I suppose if you're a TikToker, much less, well, I mean, it's the same thing with any sort of social media person. I mean, you have the fake, like follower increase aspects. I mean, I just had somebody reach out on LinkedIn and they wanted to, it's just like, yeah, you could pay us, it was like $250 a month and we'll get you guaranteed like 10,000 views, everything else. It's like, yeah, So either it's people on the payroll that you're dishing out so they're not organic, or you're running a bunch of compromised accounts. It's like, yeah, no, thank you. We'll do this organically. Why buy your way? Doesn't make any sort of sense to me, but I guess everybody wants to have that metaphorical piece of the social media pie. They want to feel important. But, okay. I mean, if that's what's got to take for you, that's what's got to take, I guess. Different strokes for different folks. But, okay, so with all that being done and the waffling over, this has been another rendition of It Came From Reddit. Oh, careful what you run on your systems, everyone. With all that being said, I will see you in the next video.